might have noticed our tables all the way in the back corner over there. Just wanted to say thanks to Fanime for giving us the opportunity to, host the Mahjong. It's been a mainstay for the convention for a long time. And here we're here to, do a game for you all and to have folks commentating over what our players are going to be playing today. So you get to see a little bit more about the strategy that's being played, what they're thinking, what kind of hands there are. The game itself is pretty complex, but we're all here to teach. So if you're here in the convention over the course of the next couple of days, then feel free to come by our booth and we can help get you acclimated to the game. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Steven. I'm the one that will be hosting and also handling the camera cuts. With me are my two commentators. Would you like to introduce yourself? Go for it. You already saw this guy.
Hello, I'm this guy. My name is Adriel, also go by Flock. I'm a professional player under Saito Isen, Nihon Pro Mahjong.
And I'm Hanley. I've been playing with EML for about 4 or 5 years now, and I'm helping over in the back, so come on by if you want to learn how to play.
I am going to introduce our players. In the east seat, we have Point. Woo! All right. And then in south, we have Tacit. In west, we have Cat Pearl. And in north, we have Delta Sierra 4. DS4. All right. This is going to be a timed match. This is going to be a 55-minute with no extra hands. There will be red fives. For those of you that know how to play the Ricci Mahjong game, that just means that it's going to be a lot more volatile. It's going to be much faster paced than usual. Before I get to go to the back to start the timer for this, I do want to mention that some of you may have already taken part in the beginners tournament earlier today. There is an advanced tournament happening tomorrow evening. So for those of you that know how to play Ricci, you should definitely sign up for that. Come in tomorrow, check us out. You can sign up for an account on our website, and then we'll bring you in. With that being said, I'm going to leave it to Flock and Conley here. I'll go to the back, give the A-OK. I'm going to have Flock. I'm going to give you a 3-second countdown, and then with that, we'll start, okay? So give me 1 moment to go to the back. All right. We all ready over there?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Give it, go for it. Do your countdown and begin it.
3, 2, 1. Onegaishimasu. We say onegaishimasu because that means thank you for this opportunity to play.
Just call it
Please
good
do your
luck.
best.
It's good luck, have fun, basically, right? GGGL.
So something we were talking about earlier, I was mentioning earlier, is that there will be a door indicator. Here we see this 4 Pinzu. The tile after that is the Dora. So 5 Pinzu in people's hands will be worth bonus points. And there is even an Aka 5 Pinzu, so that will be worth double.
Yep, so the red 5 or the Dora and all 5 of the characters are additional points, but they are not by themselves a winning condition. You must also have a separate winning condition in your hand. Just think of them as bonus points that you can have. And the reason why you have red 5s is it increases the scoring of the hands. So it's optional. Some rule sets do not play with red 5s. It's an optional toggle, but we're playing with them because it's more exciting, should lead to more scoring.
Yeah, for now, you see this a lot in the early game for a lot of the hands. Most people will be discarding honor tiles, which were those 3 dragons and the 4 winds. So it's usually rather difficult to incorporate those into your hands because you do need a pair in order to start pulling it, or a triplet in order to make some value. So a lot of times you will be seeing those go first. A lot of the 1s and 9s be cut next. And people moving towards the inside because one of those Yaku that we mentioned before is Tanyao. And Tanyao is when you have all the simple tiles, not including 1s, 9s, and honors.
Yep, you can think of the discards. So all the discards are 6 tiles. You can discard one after another, and after the 6 tiles, you start with the next row. So a normal full hand has approximately 3 rows worth of discards. So if you want to think about it, you can think about discards. The first row of discards you can think about is the early game. I like to think about the second row of discards as the mid game. You're trying to put your hand together, you're figuring out ways to win. And the third row of discards will be the late game. So, of course, every hand will start with an early game. Some hands will have a a mid game in some hands will go to a late game. So some people play strategies that will focus more with early fast hands or mid game sort of hands, or possibly play for late game hands if they're kind of more defensive or looking more value.
Yeah, so Point is starting us off as the dealer. Honley, do we know anything about Point? Have we learned anything about him?
Yeah, Point has been playing for about 5 or 6 years, and found out about, oh wait, first we have a Ricci from Delta Sierra 4.
So DS4 has declared Ricci has let the table know that they are one away waiting to complete their hand. So this is where you'll see players will need to make a decision whether they will keep trying to fight or if they will play more defensive and start to fold. So there's something in Ricci Mahjong known as Furten. So you are unable to win on tiles that you have already discarded, and the shape of your weight also cannot wait on those tiles. So as we see in Delta Sierra's hand, all of those in Delta Sierra's discards, they cannot win on any of those tiles from other players.
You can also notice that Delta Sierra has put out a blue stick that is 1,000 points. When you reach you are basically saying, I am confident that I'm going to win. In fact, I'm so confident I'm going to wager 1,000 of my very own points that I'm going to win this hand. Now, if Delta Sierra 4 does not win this hand, that 1,000 points goes to the winner of the hand, or it goes into the pot for the next hand. So most of the time, we see
Oikake from Tacit.
So now 2 people have reached you. You'll notice that they have both wagered 1,000 of their own points, and their hand is locked. And we see an immediate
E-Pots! Tacit! That's going to be Ricci E-Pots. Ricci Pots Piku. That's going to be a 3,900 point dealer.
Yep. 3 hung and 33.
Just well for you.
And as we can see, because Delta Sierra 4 did not win that hand, their 1,000.6 goes to the winner.
Yeah, so that's double unfortunate for DS4, losing the Ricci stick and the direct dealing on the Ipatsu turn. So the Ipatsu turn is that same go-around from when the Ricci declaration had been done. So that was still on Dan's or Tacit's one go-around.
Yep, and nobody has called, so that is still a valid Ipatsu. That is one of the dangers of Ricci. When you reach your hand is locked. And if the pile that you draw is not your winning spot, you have to throw it right back out, no matter how dangerous or valuable that tile may be. Tacit has been playing for a couple of years. He actually found Ricci Mahjong from watching Northern Lions stream, which is something that is more of a recent phenomenon. A lot of the older players have been playing Ricci Mahjong from watching anime like Saki or Kagi, possibly from playing Final Fantasy 14. But Northern Lions is a more recent addition to the Ricci Mahjong scene. We appreciate, of course, all of the streamers giving our wonderful game more a greater audience.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting to see Ricci Mahjong coming to a wider audience. I think Door the Line had started with the Nintendo Clubhouse games, if I say correctly. Getting an auto approval from the Northern Wire employers.
Exactly. Ricci Mahjong, of course, being very popular in Japan. I would probably, I'm sure, Buck can speak about this more. I'd say it's on the part of probably Japan's national game, like pastime. You can find places like Mahjong all over the place in Japan.
Yeah, so some of our members from Pacific Mahjong League have made trips to Japan, have played with some pros, some other, a lot of Mahjong adventures. I think it's really fun that with this game you can kind of break down those barriers. The only Japanese you do need to know is how to make the calls, and you can't have that kind of interaction. So I think that's really fun.
Yeah, and in Japan you absolutely will see televised Mahjong. So So there are Japanese pros who play, and it is televised on some Japanese channels. So it's definitely something that a lot of people in Japan will follow as well. You have your favorite players, your favorite team jerseys, merch, all of those things.
Yeah, so some of us do get together and watch some of the professional matches that do go on. There are 5 professional organizations in Japan that each have their own leagues, and they all send members to another league, inter-pro league called M League, and that one is heavily televised in Japan. They have tons of corporate sponsors. It's really up there. It's just blasted on TV everywhere. Ad sponsorships everywhere.
As you can see, we moved into the second row of this cards. So this is more of the net gaming. This is
we see the Sugiri Richi here from Point. So what that means is that Point had not changed the shape of his hand before he declared that he was one away, or that he is now have a ready hand. So the handshake is still the same. However, now he's throwing a stick in. So you might wonder, why did he do that? So that's for the other players to try to decipher.
And you'll notice that this is approximately when you would expect to see somebody's hand being ready. Now, whether or not that's an open hand or a closed hand, I think the average is somewhere around the 8th or 9th discard or so.
Yeah, 9th sounds correct.
Yeah. So this is more or less where somebody would expect at least one of the players to be ready. And now it is up to the rest of the players to decide if they want to try to continue to build their hand and try to find how that they can safely give up. We can see Packful here with 2 9 so or 9 of the bamboo in a row, which indicates most likely some sort of defensive play, knowing that the 9 of bamboo is not the tile that opponent is looking for, it would be safe to get early.
Yeah, so this entire game is just a balance of when do I fight and when do I fold.
Yeah. So what some of the things that the players I'm sure are thinking about whether or not they want to fight is, are they ahead in the number of points? It's still relatively early. There's still a lot of Mahjong to be played. How valuable is their hand? How valuable do you think the person who can reach his hand is? There's a lot of things that go into that. That's probably one of where the strategy of the game really comes into play. The decisions to fight, to push your hand basically, or to pull, or somewhere in the middle. Those are all possible things depending on where we are in the game, who's in who's in, how much value you see in the hand.
Yeah, so the big motivation here for Tacit is that he is dealer. So as dealer, you win essentially 1.5 times. And in the event that someone else at the table here, let's use Point as example, if Point were to draw the winning tile, then Tacit would have to pay a premium. So you are incentivized as the dealer to fight.
Yeah. So you can think of it very basically as there's a few different outcomes in the hand. The best outcome, of course, is that you win the hand. The second best outcome is you don't win the hand, but somebody else loses the hand, so therefore you don't actually pay any points. The third outcome is the person who won the hand sells to it, so you pay a percentage of the points. And the worst outcome, or the least deserved outcome, is that you don't win the hand and you pay all the points because you threw the winning tile for the person who won the hand. So you can assume, therefore, that if there are 4 people playing, that you at best are going to win only a fourth of the time. I think the actual number of percentage of the time that you do win the hand is probably closer to around 20% of the time because some hands nobody wins and so on and so forth. So
we will be coming up on the end of the wall here. So there is a wall here known as the dead wall. That is 14 tiles. So regardless of if players make calls, at the end there must be 14 tiles here left in the dead wall. So this is the last draw here that DS4 does have, and then the players, if they are in Tenpai, if they do have a ready hand, they will show.
now, a ready hand does not have to have a legal winning condition. As long as your hand is one tile away, then that is a hand that is ready. But here we see that all three of the other players are not ready. Therefore, they all have to pay a not ready, no 10 penalty, but they reach a 6 because nobody won, who goes into the pot for the next hand.
So the no 10 penalty is 3,000 divided by the number of players who are not in Tenpai. So since there were 3 players that were not in Tenpai, each of them paid 1,000 to the player who was in Tenpai. And as that was Tacit's dealership and he was not Tenpai, the dealership moves on.
Yes, but it's a little hard to see, but you can see this little green square up in the left center. That is what's known as a repeat counter. So anytime somebody does not win, that counter goes up. So what that basically means is the next hand that is won is worth 300 extra points. So whoever wins that next hand, not only do they get the base value of their hand, but they also get 300 extra points. Either 300 directly from the person who deals in the tile, or they get 100 each from each of the other 2 players if they self-draw the win.
So we are now at East 3. For a standard Hanchan, the rounds will go up to South 4. So Point started off as our dealer. That was East 1, then Tacit, East 2, now Cap Pearl in East 3, and then it'll be East 4, and then South 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, and you will see that the yellow circle indicates who is currently dealer. As the hands move along, the person who's dealer is going to change. Illuminate a button helps remind everybody at the table who is currently dealer, but who has 1.5 times scoring value when they win, or pays 1.5 more than everybody else if somebody else self-draws their win.
For those who it's a little difficult to see, Tacit is currently in first here with 33,900 points. And second is Point at 32,000, and third is Cat Pearl with 29,000, and last is DS4 at 24,100.
Now the average hand value of a winning hand over all of Original is approximately 5,000 or so points. So these are still relatively close points. Nobody, I think, has won a particularly large hand, and we still have plenty of time for somebody to counter comeback. So by no means is anybody particularly far behind right now. Also, when you have a dealership, that gives you the opportunity to build points because that 1.5 bonus really helps you close any gap that you might have.
For those who have come or ever played on online clients, either Mahjong Seoul, Riki City, Tenho, a lot of those heavily incentivize you to play fourth avoidance, aka just avoid fourth at all costs. Getting third is okay, but in general, IRL plays, league, those types of things, getting a lot of thirds is bad. You don't want to get a lot of thirds. You want to win. You want to beat the top. So.
And we see a Ricci from DS4, and right there is now the 7th discount, slightly early, but I would consider the early middle game. And they do not draw the winning tile after Ipatsu turn. So Ipatsu is no longer a valid winning condition. They're still in Ricci, but no Ipatsu.
Yeah, I think one of the things here is that DS4 is giving just no information to the table. We see a ton of honors, an 8 Manzu, and a 4 pin. So there's still a lot of very dangerous Suji left to play. So if players want to fight here, those are going to be very unchecked.
Yep. We also see that the 2 of Bamboo, the 2 so is the Dora indicator, which means that the 3 so is Dora. And we do not see any Dora in anybody's discards, nor do we see the red 5. So there's still a lot of values out there in people's hands, or possibly in the wall. So
I suppose Point looking to fight here.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a reasonable tactic with no Tatsu or taking away Tatsu. That's one less Yaku or Han that DS4 could be working with. So not the worst idea.
There's a lot of monsters brewing. We'll see. Let's see if these players just decide to
as we see, as each player continues to not be able to self-draw the winning tile, more and more tiles come out. And each of those tiles that comes out that is not the winning tile, that's more information for the rest of the players. They're basically saying, hey, here's more free tiles, or more safe tiles. If you want to continue to try to build your hand and you have safe tiles to discard, you may choose to do so. So it's not a continuum, it's a continuum. It's not it's not always a push or a pull decision. It is sometimes you do a little bit of one or a little bit of the other, and there's things you can do.
These players really feeling the pressure for 3 keys. Maybe not points. He code 9 so, but maybe starting to creep in for some of the other players.
And as the hand goes on, and PS4 has not found the winning tile yet, the other players have to start thinking about what potential tiles they could be waiting on. And that comes down to an analysis of what tiles have been discarded, not only by them, but also any tiles discarded by the other players. Now, over time, since there are only 4 copies of any one tile on the wall, eventually if you see all 4 copies of the tile, such as, say, the 3 of Hinzu, which could be called, it makes it less likely they're waiting for the shape that is around the 3 of bamboo. Or not the 3 of Hinzu, the 3 of Hinz. And we can see now we're in the 3rd row of discards, which is now the late game. There are fewer and fewer tiles left, so there's fewer chances of PS4 to be able to draw their winning tile.
One of the things that's really nice about these tables, the Amos Rex 3s, is the auto hi-fi as well as the way the walls come up. It already indicates how many tiles you're going to need to draw before it ends. So basically, once this wall finishes, that's when it ends. Otherwise, when you're playing with hand shuffle, when you're playing with a non-auto table, it's more difficult to have to figure those things out yourself.
And if you're local, you can also come over to our Mahjong parlor. This is a Mahjong League. We'll be in Fremont. We generally open on the weekends, and we've got plenty of teaching days coming up where you can learn how to play and you can play with this concept automatic table. I see a silver.
Testing.
So right here, Tacit
We
just
have one
won.
spot open for the 7 p.m. Goblin Slayer session, if anyone is interested. That starts in about 12 minutes. Check in the tabletop gaming if you are interested. Cheers.
Tacit on this hand won a total choice, so all triplets and total and
If you are running that
small
session, I just sent someone over there. Cheers.
Cheers. Hand was 2,000, 4,000. So that will heavily propel Tacit in the lead here with 44,200 points.
Very unlucky for PS4 there. That was in 10 bucks. They've been reaching for a long time. Simply did not draw their tile, and nobody threw out their own time.
Sometimes there's just no justice in Mahjong. You can be Richie first, you can be double E, you can be turn 2, Richie good way, and someone else will just sweep it away from you. And that's the game.
And, PS4 is, I believe, one of the winning Yakuza last night was Hinzu, which is their favorite Yaku, winning for conditions. So, it feels pretty bad when you don't win when you have all those tiles.
Betrayed by your favorite Yaku. That's tough.
Who's not having a favorite Yaku convert? That's tough. Mahjong, yay!
So one of the things that we were semi-ecstatic about with Tacit's hand, last hand that we should mention is if he had drawn into that close, those triplets close, that would have been a chance at a Yakuman, which is the highest class of scoring hands that you can make in the game. But unfortunately, had to open up in order to speed up the hand. Still won a sizable 2,000, 4,000, 8,000 points in total. But It could have been 32,000 if he was really lucky.
Yep. Yakuman scores at the window, just 32,000. Unless you're a dealer, in which case you get that one nice 145 bonus, which puts it 48,000. Which would probably have put somebody in the negative, actually. It doesn't one-off somebody with an offer.
Yeah, speaking of negative or going negative, there are black sticks in the table that you can use once you have busted. So they're essentially used as I'm really broke sticks. Hold one up. Hold one up for the class. Here we go. So generally, the red sticks are used as the 10,000, but the blacks also work as 10,000 point sticks, but they indicate I'm broke.
Yes, thank you to our players for taking quick pause to hold up about this. Now you'll notice, since this game is timed, our players tend to be drawing a tile, letting it wait for a second, partially for our benefit and partially so that they can think about what tile they want to discard, and then discarding the tile. By no means, if you're a beginner, do we expect you to play this quickly. In fact, we prefer that you spend a little bit of time to think about what tile you're going to discard. But because this is, and we see a recheat from Capcom. Once again, we'll see that this is a reach on the 7th tile, which is a little bit faster than normal, but still holding more or less to our 8th or 9th discard. And we do not see the sumo on the Ipatsu, so no Ipatsu for Capcom.
Cap roll at 23,300, looking to, or 23,900, looking to move into second place. Point at just under 30K at 29.9. So Amongon will do it.
And there is the run.
Deal in from DS4, it will be the Richi Kinfu Dora. So 3,900. We see a yellow stick was given, that's a 5,000 point stick. In return, Capfurl gave 1,100 back.
And now we move into the south round. If you can see next to Point has the wind indicator. When you are playing Dragon Hog, traditionally you play either in East only or in East and South. And so since we're playing what they call a hard chart, it is both East and South, which means that everybody, time permitting of course, should have at least 2 chances at a dealership. So you can think of this as the midpoint of the game. Hassett certainly has gone down to a little bit of a lead, and DS4 is a little bit behind, but because they're playing with red flags and everybody has at least one dealership points, by no means are they, is this a very difficult position where they have to go for valuable hits. They should have plenty of time to chip away and come back in this contract.
Now, so players need to think about what their plan is at the halfway point in this game based on their points. So Tacit is comfortably in the lead here, 14,000 points above Point in second. So how will he play, based on this crystal? How much risk would you like to introduce?
We talked a little bit earlier about push forward decisions and how that's influenced by what your position is. Going into the south round, I would think that DS4 would probably, since they're behind, would probably want to push more of their hands into reaches, because if you're fourth, you can't get more fourth. You can lose points, but you'll still be fourth. But if you manage to win the game, then you can go through it out of fourth. Whereas Passive being in first place might decide to play a little more defensively if somebody else reaches. You'll also notice that in the south round, that the round wind, which is a valid outcome, has now changed. It used to be the east wind, now it is the south wind.
Yeah, so particularly here, if Tacit were to have a triplet of the south, that would be worth 2 Han, both for the seat and for the round.
And never let it be said that Mahjong is not a game of a certain amount of superstition. I've actually asked all of the players if they have a favorite or lucky or unlucky tile. Everybody either has a tile that they really like or a tile that they particularly don't like. Points likes the green dragon. DS4 is a fan of the 4
So how many of these players got the unlucky tile from the muscle recap thing?
Yep. If you play Mahjong Soul, every year they give you a nice little annual report and they tell you what tile you won the most from, which is what they can call your lucky tile, and also the tile that you lost the most with, which they call your unlucky tile. Fun fact for me, that as of for the last year, it was the same. It was a 3 of Kinzu. I won the most on 3 of Kinzu. I also lost the most on 3 of Kinzu. We'll just call it a loss of one. The tile of great importance for me.
And you would usually want to keep a close hand if possible in order to make the most value possible. So we see that DS4 has opened up, so that is no longer possible where you would make the most potential, but that does speed up the hand. So there's a number of reasons for that. It could be that they are just planning to get it to their dealer and then repeat as dealer, keep winning, keep winning. It could be that there is some other value somehow.
Yep, exactly. One of the things that you're behind is, since we're at the midpoint, you can either try to win points, like a large number of points all at once, or you can try to win smaller hands and try and make your way back as the dealer. Also, PS1 by virtue of its initial seat is going to be all last dealer. So unlike in Mahjong Soul, or if you're first place and all last dealer, in this list, you will continue to play until you no longer win a hand or are not ready at the end of the hand. Time pending, of course. So PS1 could be going for an all last dealership rampage of some sort.
Yeah, so players here have seen that DS4 has opened up twice with a Pone of the Tuso and a Pone of the Northwind. After that, discarding Sozu. So if they are building in that single suit, that could be a hand that would give some value. We see point reaching by discarding the Dora.
And immediately called by Tacit. That is 3 Dora 5 and the red one, which by itself is 4 Han. So that is showing 8,000 Among Us worth of value right there, which may put DS4 in a tough spot because they made 2 calls. They have less tiles in their hand that they can hold with, and they decided to throw out this other drew right away.
Now this is where it's funny because Tacit is in first. Usually, I'm in first, so I can play defensive. But if you have all the value, then no one else has value. So let's fight.
Yep. And on top of that, point is also in reach, which indicates that they are ready. And don't forget that point is also the dealer, so they get additional value if they win their hand. So there's potentially 3 different players who all think that they have a great shot at winning this hand.
So that is the road here from point on Cat Girl. It is Ricci, Tanyao. No, not Tanyao. Ricci Dora.
As dealer, that is worth 1.5 the normal amount, so that is 3,900. And because the dealer won the hand, they get to play again. So they are still the dealer.
Point will repeat as the dealer, so we are in South 1, repeat 1. Point slowly making his hedge towards Tacit. They are now less than 11,000 point difference.
Yep. Point's been playing about 5 or 6 years now, and originally found out about Japanese Mahjong by watching anime, such as Saki or Kagi, and also Friends. Mahjong at this base is a 4-person game, sometimes 3-person, depending on the rules that you're playing with, and is very much a social game where I personally think best played with people live as opposed to playing online. I mean, of course, there's time considerations, but I'm personally a big fan of the tactile feel of the tiles and being able to play with people you know, and that social aspect of it. So,
now, whether you are from the Bay Area or you're visiting, you should definitely check out if there is a local club near you. I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, I'd say in the last 10 years or so, Japanese manga in the United States has certainly gotten more popular, partially fueled by things like Saki and Nagi and other manga and anime, or for Final Fantasy 14, or even for something like Yakuza, like a Dragon. So there is a loose, I'd say, coalition of Japanese mahjong clubs based throughout many major cities in the United States. So from say, New York City, or Baltimore, Washington, D.C., or from LA, Seattle. There's a lot of clubs all over the place. I think Atlanta has a club now. Las Vegas just started a club a couple years ago. So yeah, check it out online. And of course, if you're local to the Bay Area, we're racing the great one. So come on by the weekends and sling some towers with us.
Yeah, if you are interested in maybe looking at an online client, like I mentioned before, Mahjong Seoul and Ricci City are probably the most popular online clients. They're on mobile, you can go ahead and check them out. Ricci City is known for having a really beginner-friendly kind of tutorial that will lead you along, teach you these things that we're talking about, like the yaku, the win conditions, how to score. So, it's a really fun way that you can improve by yourself if you aren't feeling comfortable in going, into an IRL setting right away.
So what we see here, interestingly enough, the door indicator is the south wind. Now, winds and dragons, they go in a specific order. So it goes east, south, west, and north. That follows basically the sitting pattern. And if you're thinking to yourself, that doesn't sound right, then the compass, the way that directions work in Mahjong, as you can imagine, the wind is rising from the seat up onto the table. So it's a little bit swapped with the way that they're positioned. It's not a true compass currently form. For the dragons, it goes in alphabetical order, whether or not you're speaking in English or Japanese. So it goes green, red, and white, and then back to blue.
Is the wind thing is that the actual explanation?
That is what I've been told. It is how that wind is rising from your seat onto the table is
you could definitely gaslight me into believing that. Like that's the real one, and you just made it up right now.
Hey, look, all I know is when in doubt when it comes to something in Japanese, just say it's tradition. Why do sumo wrestlers wrestle on an elevated platform? It's tradition. Why do they throw salt into the ring before they walk in? It's tradition.
That's religion.
Well, yeah, but it's also tradition that they do that.
A lot of Tanya tiles being discarded here from point. We saw a little look of confusion over from Tacit, trying to figure out what's he cooking.
And you can see we're going towards the end of the mid-round, so you would think that at least one or two of these first hands should be pretty close to ready. So at this point, not seeing anybody in Ricci, it should probably bring up some alarm bells for some of the other players as to why nobody has Ricci. Now, just because your hand is ready does not mean you have to Ricci. While Ricci is a valid winning condition, sometimes you have other winning conditions in your hand that don't require you to Ricci. Why would you decide to not Ricci? It could be because you're looking for an upgrade to give you more winning conditions. It could be because you have, and we see a sumo.
Dama Sumo from Cat Girl.
And on the red 5 for some additional value.
So the sumo octa will be 500, 1,000 is 600, or 1,100. Pepperell winning a respectable hand here. This will move the dealership along into South 2. So if there are no more repeats, there will only be 3 more hands. To move on to Tacit's second dealership, he's still in the lead at 43,600 points. In second is Point at 32,700. And third is Cat Pearl at 27,100. And it last is DS4 at 16,600.
Interesting. Tacit decides to to cut a 5 of bamboo, a 5 so as the first discard. Normally you would start with a, and we see one of the reasons why, an immediate pawn for their sequence. Most of the times you would expect to see a guess win or a terminal tile being the first cut, but cutting a middle tile possibly means that you have an idea about what your hand can do. The reason why players don't usually cut a middle tile first is because there's a lot of ways for that middle tile to improve. They can draw tiles on either side, they can pair up that middle tile, there's a lot of flexibility, especially for your fives. In this rule set you have the red one, which gives you, which there's one copy of each 5 is red, and we see a second call from Cassie. Interesting.
Yeah, so if players want to try to read this hand, Tacit make calls and cut a lot of middle tiles in 2 suits. You cut tiles in the Sozu and the Manzu.
Yeah, and we see Capital here making a call for her sequence, which is the south. And because this is both the seat and the roundment, it is worth through winning division. We're too high. So already increasing value and matching out and making the G as well.
This is a big moment for Capital to potentially move into second place here. Discord doesn't look too happy with the draws.
It's unfortunate. There is definitely a certain amount of luck involved in Mahjong. You need to draw the tiles that you're looking for. Sometimes you have to make some difficult decisions in order to push forward. There's absolutely some luck in Mahjong, but it's also what makes it easy. And we see a call from Point. Point makes a call as well. So that is now 3 players who have opened their hand. A lot of players going for fast hands, and we'll see. PS4's got a decision to make. Do they want to try to build their hand and try to maybe declare Ricci? Being the only person who has a closed hand, they're the only person now who can declare Ricci.
Yeah, at this point for DS4, if you do deal in, hopefully it's not to Tacit, or else it's going to repeat. If you deal in and it moves the round along, brings it closer to your dealership, maybe that's the lesser of evils. So.
Yeah, also, having your hand open tends to cap the value that your hand can be. One of the things about Ricci is if you win on a Ricci, not only do you get to score any door that you might have, but the tile that's sitting underneath the door indicator is also then flipped up. It's called the hidden door. So you get the hidden indicator and potentially have additional door in your hand. So Ricci hands tend to increase the value of the hand if you can move. And only the person who would think Ricci, who would win the hand, has access to that hidden door. Everybody else, for their open hand, if they win, you just get to see exactly the door they have that is showing what they have. And we see a run from Capcom.
That is double south Dora, which is going to be another 3,900 point hand. Point hands over a 5,000 point stick, and Capital gives 1,100 back.
And we see with that Ron off the person in second, Capital is now overtaken second. He is now at 30,000 points, and Point is now only at 28 points, so ahead by 1,200 points. And now is also her dealership, so maybe she can string together some winning hands and possibly chase down Passive.
So this is an interesting point also for Cat Girl. She can fight here to try to make it into first. Also getting Oyakawa lead or having to do a dealer payment of Mongon would put her back into third place in a situation where someone, for example, Tacit or DS4 sumo a 8,000 point hand, she would be responsible for the 4,000 point payment, and that would bring her under point once again.
Well, that's part of the way that Mahjong balances the advantage of being dealer. You win more, but if somebody else wins by self-draw, you lose a little bit more too. Then we see the pawn from Capcom going for probably a faster hand, which will allow her to repeat as dealer and possibly have more chances at chasing down and passing in first place.
about being in tough spots. Either how good your hand is, or if you're just getting all bad hands and how much value you want to make, whether how your position is at the current point. So we see here for DS4, you know, it's a balance of trying to bring it to your all-last dealership and how much potential you want to even make points on this hand in particular.
Yep. And this is part of the luck aspect of Mahjong, where when you flip up those first 13 tiles and make a percent of the hand, sometimes you just don't get a very good one. I'd say the bottom 15% of hands are just, I don't say nearly unplayable, but very difficult for you to convert. So remember, if we go back to what we were talking about earlier, when you go in at best probably about 20% of the hands, that means that 80% of the hands you're not going to win. So if you're not going to win, perhaps the best decision is for you to just make sure that you're not the first one deals in the winning tile.
You are definitely at the mercy of your draws. So all these players here have something to think about. For Tacit, it's how do I end this game? Potentially there's only 2 hands left. How do I end this in first with the current 12,000 point lead above Cat Pearl? For Cat Pearl, it's how do I repeat as dealer and try to get that first place? For Point, it's how do I at least get over Cat Pearl with a 2,200 point difference.
Now, one of the interesting things you'll notice is that 3 players have all discarded one of the 8 of circles. The reason why this is interesting is because the 7 of circles is the Dora. And one of the ways you can incorporate the Dora into a sequence would be using the 678, the 781, something like that. But the fact that 3 of the 8s have been thrown out indicates that a lot of players have 7 or multiple 7s in their hand, or don't think that they're going to have a way of using the 7 even if they do draw it. And remember, there's only 4 copies of any one tile in the game. And we see the run.
Oh, they just messed up 100 points. Okay.
This is a Haku Dora 2 direct deal in, so that is going to be 5,800. Tacit gives over 6,000, and Capital gives back 200. So that is almost 12,000 point direct hit, and now we see less than or a 1,000 point difference between Cat Pearl and Tacit. Tacit still in the lead by 1,000 points.
Yep.
He is just kind of spicy.
But because Cat Pearl won, she gets a repeat as dealer, and with that 1.5 point bonus that is helping her close the gap rather quickly. And now this game has been opened up quite a bit. Everybody now is in reasonable distance from each other. It's probably good news for DS4 because they have less of a difference to potentially come back, overtake somebody, or fight for first place depending on what their hands look like.
So we see how important being dealer is. The hand that would normally be 3,900 points was worth 5,800 because Cat Pearl was dealer. So you are heavily incentivized.
A pawn from DS4 and dropping the red 5 of Bamboo, which is not only additional value, but also very close to the 4 of Bamboo, which is Dora, which indicates that they probably have a plan. You also notice an early pawn of a terminal tile, which also locks you out of the most common types of open hands, such as all symbols. So, you know, something for the other players to consider. This early hand opening for a terminal tile and immediately dropping a red 5 and players coming in for. What's the DS4 been working on?
And I think the players here have an idea of what types of hands DS4 would be looking at with that. That it could be heavily into the Manji suit, could be that Honitsu and Toy Toy, could be Kinitsu of just all one suit without any honor tiles. It doesn't always mean that it's necessarily dangerous, but, you know, DS4 needs to balance how likely is it based on their placement. So it could be a Hail Mary, but it could be just what they need to get back into it.
But because of Capital just winning that last hand, the players ahead of PS4 may not feel particularly confident either, because if PS4 is able to sumo a big hand, that might be something that puts other PS4 above some of the other players. So by no means is this an easy decision for the rest of the players, since the scores are getting closer and closer. We've just got news from the back there. 10 minutes left in this one. 10 minutes.
Yeah, so similar to League games, we do play with a timer. So it is a little bit unfortunate. Sometimes if you are the north seed starting, because depending on how many repeats there are, you might not get your second dealership. And we saw just with Capital how important that dealership can be.
As we move into the middle rounds here with the beginning of the second round of discards, the other players are definitely going to be thinking about what their hand shapes look like, whether they want to continue to fight or not. There's a lot of decisions that they have to be balancing here. And other than the one red 5 so that PS4 has cut, we have not seen any other door or any other valuable tiles come out so far, which could indicate they're in other people's hands, or they're still in the wall to be drawn to increase the value of their own hand.
Even though Point is in third place here, and 8,000 point Sumo, a Mongon Sumo would get him right back into first place. So it doesn't always mean that you're far away from first if you are third or fourth place.
And other than DS4, nobody else is opening their hands. So other than DS4, everybody else still has the possibility of reaching, which into the person who's in fourth place probably doesn't factor as much, because DS4 knows that there's not a lot of time left in the game, but also not a lot of time left for them to win hands. If they're going to come back to fourth place, they probably got to think about winning hands as soon as they can.
Yeah, I wish I could delve into the minds of our players here. We just saw a South Tadashi, or from the inside of the hand, from DS4. Also has a 3 of characters in the discard, so there's only either their hand might be ready or they are working towards only a couple of number of hands.
Yep. You'll notice that each of our players, when they draw, the draw tile is separate from the rest of their hands. This is important information that the rest of the players must be able to know whether the tile that you discard is a tile that you had just drawn or a tile that you had discarded from your hand. As we see from DS4, who once again discards a tile from their hand. This is, if you play online, this is exactly how the online plan is going to show it as well. They will show the drawn tile to the side of your hand, and if you cut that tile, the animation will show that tile getting cut. And if you cut a tile from your hand, the animation will show a tile from your hand getting cut. Interesting. DS4 throwing the red 5.
Yeah, so a 6 Monzu followed by a Aka 5 Monzu being released from the hand definitely's got to set off some alarm bells for our players here.
And now a door that is thrown by DS4 as well. And Points decided, well, if you're not going to use that value, I guess I will. And he makes that call. And throws the 4 Manzu, which unfortunately for DS4 is not something they can use. And now Tassik's going to take some time and think about whether or not he wants to continue to try to build his hand.
And there's a lot of stuff going on at this table. It's still very dicey for Tacit and Capful to be playing. And I'm going to try to figure out, is DS4 even in Tenpai? Is their hand even ready? What's going on over there? Why are all these doors being cut? I particularly haven't actually walked around and seen, so I actually don't know what the hand is either.
Don't worry, I got my best poker face on to not give anything away. And now Capcom makes a late call as well, possibly trying to work her way into Tenpai, which would allow her to not have to pay the note and payment, but also give her one more dealer weekly.
As we mentioned, the no 10 payments is 3,000 split among the people who are not in Tenpai. So that, with a 1,000 point gap between Tacit and Catful, that is really important here.
And the third 5 thrown by DS4. Just unfortunate that that did not get there. But that's Mahjong for you. Alright, and we go to Exhausted. Let's see who's ready. Oh, Ron. Oh, we did not get Exhausted. Oh, Ron on the last. Or Ron on the last tile, which is an additional Yaku.
So that was Tanya Haite Dora 2. Bote, excuse me. The difference between Haite and Bote is when you roam, and Haite is when you sumo the tile.
Yeah, unfortunately, PS4 is working on a pretty big hand, which was full flush, but unfortunately was not able to make it work from the end.
Did that Shinichi really not use the Aka?
No comments. PS4 is an experienced player, and I would be remiss in my duties if I made a. Let's just say that I possibly would have made some silly different this fight. But everybody has their own style of mahjong. You gotta play your style of mahjong.
Aqua Trap can be real.
Yes, unfortunately, the other two mono-action Capitals hands. So unfortunately, not live.
We have moved into all last. This is South 4. So if DS4 is not Tenpai at Ryokyoku, or if someone else wins the hand, the game will end here. We are very tight here with the hands.
Yes, and we have just gotten word from the back that this is the last hand. Time is up. So unfortunately, even if PS4 manages to win this hand, they will not be able to have a win.
So we see less than a 1,000 point difference between Tacit and Point. Tacit is still in the league first tier with 37,800 points, with 37,100, and third is Catful at 28,500, and then last is DS4 at 60,600.
But they do indeed have the dealership because they can find a pretty big hand here. This is absolutely a way that they can come back.
Both Point and Tacit looking to win any hand regardless of the value in order to end the game in first.
And we also see Capro making a pawn of the green dragon, which is the Dora, which basically shows that that is both a winning condition, the Yaku, with the green dragon, as well as Dora 3, which by itself is worth 8,000 points.
Catful with minimum 8,000 point hand. If sumo, that would bring them into first. Roning or winning off of some other players would not necessarily put them in first, depending on how much the rest of the hand is worth.
Yeah, when you see this early Dora pawn, the other players have to think very carefully because it is a balancing act between the scores are close, so they can't necessarily afford to like half for sumo. They also don't want to be the one necessarily dealing. And we see a Riichi from PS4.
A Riichi from the dealer could shake things up here. Unfortunately, like I said, we ran out of time. DS4 will not be able to repeat as dealer as they usually would if they win. But hopefully this is enough points to get them out of fourth.
And very Matsuta. Ooh, it's the red.
5. Unfortunate. While you're in Ricci, your hand is locked. You cannot change it. If it's not the running tile, out it goes, just like any other one. And once again, that's just Mahjong, folks.
Better to be lucky than good.
And we see Point making another call, trying to overtake Tassets in this all last.
Sometimes you gotta risk it all to make it happen. Players can't assume that Point is either ready, has a ready hand here, or is in a really good shape, one away. Calling this late and cutting middle tiles. It's really a balance for if Tasset wants to just full fold or wants to win it in order to end it himself and eliminate that risk of Point winning the hand.
Yep, it's very difficult times right now because we see Capital with 8,000 points showing. We see Point with 2 calls and not needing a lot of points to overtake first. And we see the dealer who's in Ricci. And we see a call from Capital. So now Capital has made 2 calls. And there it is.
The roam here from Capital. This hot 2 Dora-san will be the 8,000 point deal in. And sometimes that's just how it goes. PS4 not having the best luck here. Getting oikake, like a lot of people fighting when they're in Ricci.
Not having a Ricci from the first row getting converting. So the final scores are flop.
So in first, at the end, is Tasset at 37,800. In a close second, and an all-last Yakin overpoint. Catcroll in second at 37,500. In third is Point with 37,100. And in last, of course, the DS4 at 7,600. So places first through third were all less than 1,000 points away from each other. And that's what we use to do a Ricci declaration, 1,000 point stick. So it's an incredibly close game.
That was a really close game. If there was a camera in the back showing our reactions, you had no idea how crazy you were going back there. Like some of those draws were crazy, interesting. Again, very lucky too. So I just want to give a shout out to Fanime and Block here. Thanks. A good round of applause for doing the commentary. Doing this for a full hour is really hard, by the way. So like props up for doing this. We'll actually see you two play in tomorrow's exhibition match as well. So we will be having another exhibition match tomorrow. Come back and check it out. I think like 3:30 or something. Yeah, okay, so it's like 4 o'clock, around that time we usually be here when we get started then. And then of course, round of applause to our players. Woo! Good job, folks. And then once again, thanks to Fanime for hosting us. And again, come out to the booth. We're there. We'll teach folks how to play Mahjong. If you have any questions, feel free to come out and reach out to us. With that, thanks everybody.
Thank you.